how's it going, Twitch? My name is Skull, and on behalf of East Asia Soft, welcome to today's stream. Today is Sunday, which means that it's time for me to continue my playthrough of Venus Improbable Dream. Make sure I hit the load button this time. Also made sure that I had the title of the stream correct this time. Very important. Okay, let's go into it. So, I'm trying to remember where we're at. Kakeru and Haruka are eating lunch now together, which is cool. Hi, Nian. Gonna take a quick drink of water. This is a visual novel where I have to read everything, so... Morning. This time, I've slept through the night and woken up as I normally would on a Sunday. However, once the sleepiness begins to wear off, I'm reminded of what happened yesterday, and it feels like an instant downer on my mood. Oh yeah, he had a panic attack. No, trust me, Dim's not here. Surveying my room, I noticed that that glass of water I drained yesterday has now been refilled, and what looks like some sort of snack is sitting next to it on my desk. One of my parents must have put them here without waking me up. Sitting up, I pull myself out of bed and shuffle over to them. On further inspection, I see that the little packet has one of my favorite Anpan sweets rolled inside. Anpan? Anpan? The mere rustle of the packaging as I pick it up causes my stomach to start growling maniacally, reminding me of the fact that I never really ate yesterday after I'd stumbled home from my panic attack. I'd spent almost the entire day sleeping. I tear the packet open and stuff a big chunk of the bread into my mouth, savoring the bean taste of it as it spreads over my tongue. I'm feeling physically better than yesterday, but I'm still in need of some rest, and probably a decent meal or two. Yep, this is a visual novel, so it's a story. As I sit there, munching and sipping my water, I figure that I must have really been out for the count if I hadn't heard whichever parent brought this into the room, whenever it had been. Usually my senses are fine-tuned to the sound of someone coming upstairs, even when I've got music playing or game sound effects blaring from the TV. My parents know that I don't like being disturbed, and generally leave me to my own devices anyway. Contemplating this, I start to feel guilty again. It's not nice that I've essentially pushed them completely away, but as I keep saying to myself, it's just an unfortunate side effect of my voluntary isolation. I wonder how long I'll be able to keep using that as an excuse before I have a breakdown. I feel my already grim mental state sliding further, so in an attempt to distract myself, I grab my phone and put some music on. Of course, Air on the G-String is the first track to come on once again. I snort in amusement, realizing that I'm kinda growing to like it. I suppose, as my panicked logic had deduced yesterday, that it reminds me sitting in the CD room, which is pretty calming for me. The thought leads me to another realization. It's funny how, outside of being here, the places in which I can let go of my nerves the most are the ones that I go to with Haruka. I guess it's a bit of a no-brainer in that we both share the anxiety around people and like to seek out quiet places. A common thread between us, forged by a wish to go unnoticed. I'm still not entirely sure how this friendship has happened, but what I do know is that Haruka seems to be someone that I feel like I can speak to, even if I'm not always comfortable spelling everything out. With that in mind, I reach for the phone again, searching out our last text conversation and hovering over the keys with my thumbs. Shall I? For whatever reason, I give in and tap out a message. I didn't meet up with the guys yesterday. It's sent. I finish up the last crumbs of bread from the Anpan packet, and only a minute later I get a response. What changed your mind? For a moment, I consider fobbing her off with some excuse, but then that would defeat the whole purpose of texting her. I shouldn't lie to save what little pride I have. The keys make quiet blipping sounds as I type. I had a panic attack on the way to the bus stop and had to go back home. It's even more degrading to write it out like this, but I gulp my discomfort down and send it. She must have her phone easily at hand because her reply comes through pretty fast. Sorry, Kakaru. These things happen. I might have done the same. She gets it. For a moment, I'd almost regretted telling her in the first place. But now I realize that she's never going to judge me for something like this. That's a relief. I send another message back, telling her that I feel bad for disappointing the club members by not showing up, and that they must have waited for me. Don't you have any of their numbers? Nope. I couldn't warn them that I wasn't coming. That's almost the worst part. They must have speculated all kinds of reasons why I'd bailed on them, and I really hope that they don't think it's personal. I'll have to say sorry to their faces tomorrow. A tingle of nerves shoots down my spine as I send that follow-up message. I'm really not looking forward to that. That's not great. Maybe you could just tell them you got sick. I guess that might be an easier explanation. Even still, I still feel awful about it. I guess in a way, it seems like a missed opportunity. I could have gotten to know the club members somewhat, and maybe felt more at ease around them as a result. That would have helped with club activities, I'm sure. Sighing gloomily, I tell Haruka as much, and that I'd kind of wanted to go out underneath it all. As I sit and wait for a reply, I hope I'm not dragging down her Sunday with my melancholy. It's not the same, but maybe you and I could go do something outside of school again. I hadn't expected that. I'd accompanied Haruka to the city bookstore to help her find something once, but we haven't just hung out for the sake of it at the weekend. It's considerable of her to offer to replace my last day out with one I might be able to manage. My last day out, okay. Before I can type out a reply, another message comes zooming in. We don't have to if you don't want. Just an idea. Though it's hard to convey someone's tone of voice via text, I get the idea that she might have thought she was being a bit presumptuous. Mildly amused, I can picture her flustered expression in my mind's eye. I put her mind at ease. That might be good, but maybe in a while. I need to recover my nerve before trying to go somewhere other than school again. Totally. Forget about it for now. Thankfully, she seems to have understood the reason behind my hesitance. Feeling bad for having taken up her free time, I shoot her one last message. Thanks. I'll leave you alone now. I'm sure she must have much better things to do, like practicing her flute, than consoling my dumbass. I get one final reply. Don't worry about it. Remember, talking to those boys might feel bad, but at least you'll be able to come to the little room with me and forget about it afterwards. Yeah, I guess she's right. I've got a quiet place to escape to once the awkward conversation is over. I put my phone down, stretching, and resolving not to think about it for the rest of the day. It'll be bad enough when it actually comes to it. Still thirsty, I go to pick up my drink, and then remember that I already finished it. I ended up sweating a lot yesterday during my panic attack, so I'd better make sure that I don't stay dehydrated. Standing up and grabbing the glass, along with the empty packet, I make my way downstairs. The house is so quiet that I almost jump when I see my dad rummaging around in the fridge. When he closes the door, he seems equally as surprised to see me. Ah, Kakaru! Scared me. He gives a short chuckle, and I attempt to smile as I file into the kitchen, throwing the Anpan packet away. Seeing this, Dad pipes up again. I know that probably wasn't too filling, but your mom's just out shopping for groceries, so you can have something better when she gets back. I nod, looking forward to a meal. God knows my body needs it. Thanks. I say this while raising the glass in my hand, and he catches my drift. The first one was me. The second one in that bread was your mother. We figured you need a drink after what happened. My mood starts to plummet again at the mention of it, though I try not to let it show. I slept loads. Dad nods with a wan smile. We thought as much. You had music going for a while, too, so we thought we'd leave you to it. Oh god, error on the G-string. They must have heard it about 20 times before I woke up and shut it off. It's a club piece Haruka showed me. Dad seems to grow interested at this, regarding me with what looks like a mixture of curiosity and surprise. You know, your mom and I would like to meet this Haruka. She seems to have helped you out a lot. I feel like any small victories of mine have been rendered entirely pointless after the absolute debacle that was yesterday. But I guess my parents see Haruka as a good influence on me, or something along those lines. She's the first friend I've just about managed to make in, well, forever, really. However, the matter of her being comfortable with coming to my house, or something equally as awkward, is another matter. Yeah. I emit the word as a lousy excuse to try to move the conversation along, wanting to get out of it anyway. I don't usually talk to either of my parents for this long. I skirt around him, filling my glass back up with water, and he seems to get the idea that I'd rather end the discussion here, half turning away to do something. As I reach the doorway to go back to my room, my earlier guilt about my relationship with my parents as a whole creeps back into my mind, and I find myself halting, swiveling back around to face Dad. Probably having expected me to just disappear, he glances inquisitively at me, waiting for me to say something. There are so many thoughts running through my head that I'm not sure how to word any of them. In the end, all I manage to say is, sorry. Standing there awkwardly, I wait for my dad's face to drop a little, as it usually does when reminded of something unfortunate to do with me. To my surprise, he doesn't seem as crestfallen as he had last night. Whether he's reading into my apology or not, he simply shoots me a brief smile that seems to suggest that he's not upset. No worries, kid. He nods slightly at me and then turns back to the cupboard. A little perplexed, it takes me a second to move, heading out of the room. Dad's a lot more relaxed than Mom is, and always has been. He seems to be able to give me space more easily, so I guess he understands my fears a little better. Mom definitely gets it too, it's just that she's a more hands-on person. I think she also just misses me as a mother. I'm more like a random lodger in this house these days rather than her son. The thought fills me with shame, but at the same time, I'm left with a slightly warm feeling from what Dad just said. Maybe the two of them accept me a little better than I think they do. Class is about to end, with roughly 10 minutes left until the bell rings. I've been struggling to concentrate all day thanks to the fear of what I'm about to do once I get to the music club. Facing these poor guys I stood up on Saturday is not going to be pleasant. Haruka and I hadn't met up at lunch, and part of me is slightly disappointed, although my nerves have been through the roof lately. Maybe it's best if I haven't tried to mix with everyone so far, even if it had been Haruka. Exhaling my worries quietly, I start to pack my things away when I catch sight of the time, which seems to have gone quickly during this last class. I spring out of my seat like always, but my heart isn't really in the fast pace I set like it usually is. Nevertheless, I forge ahead, knowing that there's no real way that I can escape this. Breathing deeply, I step inside the clubroom. Unlike the other day, the boys in question are already here, unpacking their things and chatting casually. The sight of them makes me want to bolt right back out the door, but I steel myself and head over to the piano, dumping my bag next to it. They raise their heads at the movement. Once they realize that it's me, I shuffle over to them awkwardly, my eyes on the ground the entire time. Ah, Akane, what happened on Saturday? The four of them look at me in anticipation, and the attention feels horrible. Got sick. I did go with Haruka's suggestion after all. Much more simple than the truth, and not a million miles away from it either. I felt like crap for the last 2 days. Though I'm not looking directly at them, I can make out the guy's general reactions to my reply. They don't seem too upset, nodding their heads and glancing at each other. I thought it might have been something like that. We never gave you any of our numbers, did we? I shake my head and some of them start laughing. Yeah, that was a dumb move to start with. Someone should have thought of that. Are you feeling better now? I think so. That's good then. I'm slightly taken aback by their concern for my health, having figured that these people were a bit rowdier than they're acting now. I guess they're reining it in a bit thanks to my painfully shy nature. Either that or I misjudged them. One of the boys then bats another playfully on the arm. You said you didn't show up because you didn't like us. Shut up! No, I didn't! The two of them pretend to play fight briefly, and the other boys, I don't know that word, chortle at their silliness. Despite the mention of a potential personal vendetta behind my absence, I can tell it's just a joke, and as I watch them I laugh. I feel ever so slightly put at ease. They obviously aren't that offended by the whole thing, otherwise this would have been a lot more awkward. Once the squabbling dies down, the trombone player turns to me again. So, you want to swap numbers so this doesn't happen again? Yeah, let's not make that mistake next time. Next time? Good God, I didn't even manage this time. Before I can reply, someone else speaks up. Why don't you just add him to the group? Oh yeah, good idea. One of the boys gets out his phone, showing me a group chat that they seem to have going on through their social media accounts. It feels like all four of them are included in it. While my initial reaction is to decline, I realize that I definitely find it easier to talk to people through messages than face to face. Even if I never actually meet up with them, it might help me feel more relaxed around them if we can chat through this app every once in a while. I guess it's kinda halfway towards making friends with them without hanging out. Forcing my stiff fingers to move, I pull my own phone out of my pocket and share my account details. And a few minutes later, I'm added to the group chat. It feels weird and a bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, I guess a little conversation won't hurt. Cool, we'll let you know when we're meeting up again. Hopefully you can make it. I nod bashfully, stammering out an awkward thanks, and then to my relief, Kudo-sensei calls across the room to everyone. Alright, let's get started, shall we? Stealing a quick glance behind me, I'm shocked to see the room full. I guess everyone else arrived while we were talking. The boys grin at me amiably, and I do my best to return it as I scuttle back to the piano, although I'm pretty sure I didn't manage to look as relaxed as them. My muscles are still tensed up, despite the fact that it seems like I'm off the hook. As it happens, my nerves keep bothering me all the way through the group practice, leading my performance to be a little off in comparison to how I usually play. I think it's because I have spent pretty much the entire weekend fretting over things. I've gotten so wound up that it's taking me a while to uncoil again, despite the worrying situation essentially coming to an end now. Kudo-sensei announces free practice and I slump my shoulders, feeling inadequate. I guess I'm just going to have to write today off as a bad day and hope I'm feeling more relaxed tomorrow. Grabbing my sheet music, I make my way across the room, heading to the place I'm really hoping will calm me down a bit more. When I shut the door behind me, a more tangible sense of relief finally starts to wash over me. I think the considerable drop in noise level and my distance from everyone else has something to do with it. Kakeru! Did you talk to them? She must have been wondering about it. Not worrying too much, I hope. Yeah, I think I'm fine now. Saying it out loud helps my mind to grasp it better. There's no awkwardness between me and the boys anymore, so I don't need to keep agonizing over it. I told them I was sick, like you said. They weren't mad or anything. No, they didn't seem to mind. They realized that I didn't have anyone's number, so I guess they don't blame me for it. Haruka nods with a smile. That's a relief. There's a brief silence, though it's not entirely uncomfortable. I think it's mostly down to me trying to fully let go of my stress. I didn't play very well today. In a way, it's redundant telling her that, as she probably heard at least some of it. Well, there's always tomorrow. She shoots me an empathetic look, and I feel somewhat glad of it. Do you still want to practice? Or shall we leave? I'm surprised that she'd offered to miss out on practice time just to spare my feelings, and for a moment I'm tempted to take her up on it. However, I figure it's probably best that I try and do something decent today. Let's play for a bit. Okay. She seems glad that I want to contribute, getting her sheet music in order, and I head to the piano, reminding myself one last time that my troubles are over. We'd meandered through our practice a little more slowly than usual, but at least we tried to get things back to normal. I get the feeling that I'll be more like a regular self tomorrow. Haruka has been pretty patient with me on top of putting up with my texting yesterday, so I feel sort of indebted to her. Thanks for talking to me at the weekend, by the way. She turns towards me at my words, a small smile working its way onto her face. It's okay. You can, A blush creeps into her cheeks as she pauses. You can text me whenever, if you're worried or something. Embarrassing, but thoughtful. I appreciate the fact that she's offering her support in any future times of need. Thanks, I will. She seems relieved at this, her shyness slipping away again. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, see you. We go our separate ways, and I'm left feeling both grateful and oddly downbeat. I think this whole weekend has just taken a huge toll on me. It doesn't take me too long to get home, looking forward to spending some normal, everyday time in my room instead of essentially nursing myself out of a panic attack. However, when I catch sight of my parents sitting in the lounge, they immediately gaze at me with concerned expressions, so I pause for a moment, figuring that I should give them a moment of my time before I disappear. They must have worried about me a lot over the last couple of days. Even Dad, though he was pretty casual with me yesterday. Hi, Kakaru. Was everything all right today? She's probably referring to my conversation with the boys. I briefly mentioned the fact that I couldn't contact them as I left the house this morning. Yeah, I don't think they're angry with me. Oh, that's good to hear. They must be nice boys then. I nod vaguely, unsure of what any of the guys are really like, but they had taken my no-show pretty well at least. How was the club session other than that? Did you enjoy it? Not exactly. I wasn't so good today. It hurts to admit to them, of all people, as I know how invested they seem to be in my club activities. I can tell that they're a little disappointed, but probably on my behalf, rather than at me directly. At least you got the rest of the week, and I bet you'll meet up with those boys at some point. I'm really not sure about that, but I nod regardless to appease her. Dad fixes me with a gentle look. Remember, you can invite people here at any time. You only need to ask. Mom nods enthusiastically, seeming excited at the idea. It's nice of them to encourage me to bring people here, where I'd probably be more at ease. Still, the thought of 4 loud boys laughing and chatting in here, while I wilt in embarrassment in the corner, is not a fun one. Yeah. My parents smile at me, and Mom seems to have something on her mind. Thankfully, she decides to come out with it instead of leaving me in the dark. Good job on apologizing to them, though. It must have been hard. I feel like I'm being treated like a child somewhat. It only adds to my already very low opinion on myself. However, well, I guess I still appreciate it. What I'm saying is that I understand, Akane. Knowing your usual standard, I'm confident that you're already coming back to form. I nod in reply, heat in my cheeks and a strong desire to end this conversation burning in my chest. Matsumoto-sensei had beckoned me over as soon as class had ended. It turns out that my parents had called the school this morning after I'd left, apologizing for any subpar work I may have done yesterday due to feeling tired and low after my bad weekend. To my complete embarrassment, they told Matsumoto-sensei pretty much the whole thing. So he now knows that I broke like a blade of grass being trodden on at the thought of meeting people. Not my finest hour. I really don't think that calling the school was necessary. But now that I think about it, I guess I did mention that I'd played badly during music club yesterday. Perhaps they thought I'd been that unfocused all day. I'm essentially back to my usual self today, although this conversation is pretty humiliating. Matsumoto-sensei has been trying to assure me for the past 5 minutes that he won't see me having a bad day as a sign of me starting to fall off the wagon academically. Remember, there are always people around to talk to. We've all got issues. He isn't exactly comforting at the best of times. I nod again to keep him satisfied, and he's beginning to look as though he might let me go, when... Did it just get oddly quiet in here? A few students who are still in the room fall silent, the sudden drop in background volume very noticeable. The hush is then punctured by a couple of whispered comments. Who's that? Isn't that the Fujiwara girl? What? I quickly glance at Matsumoto-sensei, and he nods wordlessly as if to indicate that I can leave. Spinning around, I follow everyone's collective gaze towards the classroom door. They're right. Haruka stands awkwardly just outside the doorway, leaning in slightly and almost hugging the wall, her cane still in her hand. The attention that she's getting in is evidently apparent to her. She looks positively rattled. What on earth is she doing here? Feeling nervous myself, but wanting to get the both of us somewhere more comfortable, I cross the room, doing my best to avoid the stares that now fall onto me as I move. Haruka? She stiffens at the sound of my voice, so there's a slight sense of relief as she recognizes that it's me. Kakeru. She tries to stutter something, but doesn't quite manage it in her fearful state. We'd better move away from the classroom. Here, this way. I head down the corridor, stepping slowly so that Haruka can get a sense of where I'm going. Once we're as far away from everyone as we can get, I come to a stop, turning to face her as she does the same. What brought you here? We have briefly mentioned where our respective classrooms are in the past, as we've met on her floor a couple of times. I hadn't expected to ever see her at mine, though. She has to take a moment to calm herself down, to limited success. By the time she opens her mouth to speak, her eyes aren't quite so wide, but I can tell that she's still very uncomfortable. You felt bad yesterday. I thought we could spend lunch together. That's something I'd expect of her, but it still doesn't explain what she's doing here. Why didn't you just text me? She grimaces, looking both sheepish and regretful. Well, I hear people come to my classroom to meet their friends all the time. It was really scary, but I thought you'd like it. With this admission, she seems to relax a little, acknowledging that the ordeal is over. I'm sort of stunned. She came to a part of the school that she's never been to before and put herself on display in front of strangers just to try to make me feel wanted? I don't even know what to think about this. She's a very thoughtful person at the least. Watching as her breathing slows and her shoulders lower gradually, I'm getting the feeling that she hadn't fully prepared herself for just how unnerving it would be for her. I sincerely hope that she isn't too jarred from the experience. I'd hate for her to suffer on my part. I did like it, Haruka. No one's ever called on me before. I say it both to console her and because it's true. The only time anyone's ever come to my classroom to see me was that one time the club member came to drop off the music list from Kudo-sensei. But he'd only been passing on a message, so it doesn't really count. This is different. Haruka's here because she wants to cheer me up and spend time with me. I'm strangely touched by the trouble she's gone to, even if it had been kind of nerve-wracking to have my classmates see it. She seems to calm down further upon hearing that I appreciate it. The two of us take a moment to still our nerves, ridding ourselves of the shock, and then she raises her head. So, do you want to do something? I almost smile at her timid question, as if I'd refute her after she went through anxiety hell to get here. Yeah, let's spend lunch together. What shall we do? Finally, her expression warms up to its usual composure. I don't mind. You choose. All right. In that case. So, as a reminder, every decision you make through the first chapter does not affect the endings you get. You get, there's different dialogue for each of these choices, but, it doesn't affect the ending, so let's go eat lunch. Do you want to go get lunch? It'd be nice for both of us to get away from everyone and just do something normal after being so tense, and Haruka seems to approve. Yeah, okay. Since the weather's not so bad today, we decide to trek down to the benches. It's suitably quiet too, so Haruka's anxiety won't spike up again. We take our seats, and I open up my lunchbox and start to eat. However, Haruka continues to rummage around in her bag, looking troubled, though her own lunchbox is already on her lap. What's up? She feels around the inside of the bag one last time before apparently giving up and looking somewhat crestfallen. I think I forgot my chopsticks. That's annoying. She looks down into her bag a little helplessly, so I put my lunch aside for a moment. Do you want me to look? They might just be stuck behind something. Oh, well, if you don't mind. Thanks. I kneel down in front of the bag, taking out the contents carefully and searching every nook and cranny for the chopsticks, but I can't find them anywhere. Sorry, I don't think they're here. I took everything out just in case. A quiet sigh escapes her. It's okay. Thanks for looking. I put everything back how I found it and sit down on the bench beside her. They'll have some in the cafeteria if you want to get some. She looks thoughtful for a moment, but ultimately her expression still remains uncomfortable. I don't think... It's just very crowded in there. I can understand her hesitance. She already put herself through a scary ordeal to call on me not 10 minutes ago. It's no wonder she doesn't want to do it again right now. Yeah, it's always busy. We don't have to go. She nods, seeming glad to stay here, but still a little forlorn. It won't be nice trying to eat her food with her fingers. Wanting to be helpful, I glance down at the chopsticks in my hand, which I've already started using. It's not really an ideal solution, but... Well, I don't want her to go hungry or make a mess of herself. We could always share if you want. As soon as I say the words, I regret them. I feel like that sounded like a terrible pickup line or something. I swear I'm not using the situation as an excuse to get closer to her. Yep, she's just as embarrassed as I am. Damn it! I didn't want for this to happen. I just wanted to help her out. We don't have to. I just thought, great, this is going swimmingly. Haruka agonizes over it for a moment, and then nods slowly. Yeah, okay. If you really don't mind. Oh, we're actually doing this. No, it's fine. With possibly the most amount of awkwardness that's ever been seen in the history of the world, we scoot slightly closer to each other on the bench, balancing our lunch boxes on our knees. I hand Haruka the chopsticks, having already had a few bites of my own lunch. She fumbles a little as she takes them and then sets about eating. We implement a system where each of us has a few bites of our food and then passes the chopsticks back to the other person. It's very weird and a little uncomfortable, but at least it'll probably only happen this once. I hand Haruka the chopsticks again, and after picking up a piece of food and putting it into her mouth, she freezes a little, swallowing awkwardly before speaking. I can taste your... Are you eating takoyaki? Oops. I guess some of the sauce must have stuck to the chopsticks after I'd eaten. Yeah. The two of us blushed like crazy with the realization that sharing eating utensils like this is essentially creating a constant, ongoing, indirect kiss. This is not what I thought would happen today. Haruka goes back to her food bashfully, eating a few more mouthfuls before passing the chopsticks back to me. Without thinking, I stuff a piece of octopus in my mouth straight away in an attempt to just get this over with. I didn't really stop to think that this exchange would go both ways, and once it's already too late, I get a little taste of spice on my tongue in addition to my own food. Haruka's curry. Oh boy, this is going to be the longest lunch period of my life. With a couple of minutes left until the bell, Haruka and I head back to the stairs, coming to a stop at her floor. I'll see you in music club then. Yeah. I'm about to turn and leave, but I'd been running the events of lunchtime through my head on the way here, and the fact that Haruka had put herself way out of her comfort zone to do something that she hoped I'd enjoy is really sticking in my mind. I don't think I'd really made it obvious how much I appreciated how thoughtful she'd been earlier, so I feel like I should say something now. By the way, thanks again for calling on me before. I know it was kind of bad for you, but I did like it. She fidgets for a moment, looking shy, but a smile does creep onto her face. It's okay. I'm glad I can make you feel a bit better. To be honest, she did. I haven't thought about the weekend or yesterday's apology since this morning. Her unexpected arrival and our lunchtime together had pushed it out of my mind. You don't have to do it again, though, if it's too much. Her shoulders jerk upward slightly as she laughs sheepishly. Yeah. See you later. Bye. She heads off down the hallway towards her classroom, and I watch after her for a moment, still pleasantly surprised by the trouble she'd gone to. I guess that's what friends are for. Give me just a second here. There we go. Okay. My fingers trip over themselves as I try to execute a particularly fiddly bit in the right hand, and the entire piece goes awry. Knowing that I won't be able to get back on track, I stop playing, and Haruka does the same, both of us grinning slightly. Sorry, this piece is still really hard. Don't worry about it. It is tricky, but you'll get it. The pair of us are working through Rondo a la Turca now that group practice is over. It's proving to be pretty troublesome. What did I say? Troublesome? And my hands are starting to ache. Glancing at the clock, I see that there's not a whole lot of time left until the bell will ring anyway, so I stretch my arms above me as I lean back slightly on the piano stool. I think I'll have to stop for today. My hands are killing me. Okay, we can try again another time. How long do we have left? Just under 10 minutes. Do you mind listening to me play through something then? No, go for it. She flips through a page in her sheet music, using the braille to remind herself of a couple of things, and then brings her flute up to her mouth. As she plays, I begin listening to her piece, trying to think of any helpful feedback that I could give her at the end. However, about a third of the way through, my mind starts to drift. Haruka just strikes me as a good person in general. Today's events taught me that in spades, if I hadn't already been thinking it before, and I guess I'm feeling a bit unworthy of being able to call someone like her, a friend. Laughing at myself internally, I note that my parents would indeed approve of her. They've mentioned wanting to meet her a couple of times, and I know for a fact that her personality would be a big hit with them. At first, it only comes into my mind as a joke, but the more I consider it, the more I wonder if something like that could actually happen. Haruka did mention the idea of us getting together outside of school again to make up for my missed outing with the boys. I'd certainly be capable of it if it was in my own house, but would she feel comfortable enough to come over? That's something that I can't really judge, but the thought lingers as I try to push it away and listen to her flute. After another minute or so, she brings the piece to its conclusion. What did you think? It sounds good. I mentally chide myself for not being able to give a more detailed critique than that, but my attention hadn't been fully on it. Thanks. I guess we'd better pack up. She begins to get her things together and I do the same, shoving my books into my bag. However, the thought of asking her about meeting up just won't stop niggling in the back of my head. So awkwardly, I decide to bring it up. She can always just say no. Haruka. She turns to face my direction curiously, her hand hovering over her music folder. Do you think you'd ever want to come over to my house? A pang of embarrassment rushes through me, and Haruka's expression grows somewhat surprised. Is that an invitation? Well, yeah, I guess. It's a quiet place for us to hang out, and my parents have been asking to meet you. Really? They know about me? She seems more confused than alarmed, and I realize that it might have sounded a bit sudden to just say something like that. Yeah, I mentioned to them just before we met at the bookstore that time. I told them you were helping me with the pieces. To be honest, you're pretty popular in our house. I think they see you as a good influence on me. Despite growing a little nervous at the prospect, her eyebrows shoot up at this comment. That's surprising. We both emit a short chuckle, and then her anxiety comes a little more to the forefront. Well, I'll have to think about it. No, it's fine. I know you haven't been there before, but my parents are pretty chilled out. I don't think they'd ask you a million questions or anything. At least I hope not. They leave me alone decently enough, so if I tell them that Haruka's also nervous around people, then they'll probably treat her similarly. Haruka nods, clearly turning the idea over in her mind. Yeah, okay. The bell clangs in the distance, which spurs Haruka back into action, grabbing the rest of her belongings and putting them away. I follow her lead, opening the door for the both of us. As we walk, Haruka seems to be deep in thought over my idea, and I hope that I've not overstepped a mark. I just figured that it might be a good way for us to see each other outside of school without being in a crowded area. We reach the front of the building where we usually split off, turning to each other as usual. So, when would you want me to come over? Wow, I am dropping so many frames. I'm sorry, I just now realized how many. I guess I should call my internet service provider, see what's going on. At least it's just a visual novel, so not like we're missing any action, but that's definitely not supposed to happen. She's evidently trying to picture how it would go and how much time she'd need to think about it for. Well, Nian, is it still streaming just fine? Like, is the stream actually coming through? And it's just that the video itself freezes, or is it that the stream itself freezes and you can't even hear me? I don't mind. Anytime. We could go back to mine after school one day if you want, and maybe look at some sheet music. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. I read it by myself at home, but it might be good to go through it together. Because the same thing was happening on my YouTube stream yesterday. I thought it was a problem with YouTube, but it might just be my internet. Okay, if the sound's fine, that's what matters most. I say this for two reasons. Firstly, it would genuinely help me out if Haruka were there to direct me, as she has a better sense of performance directions and stuff like that. Secondly, I think it might make Haruka more comfortable if we have a set activity to do while at my house. It would take some of the uncertainty out of it if she knew that we'd mostly just be studying sheet music. At least that's how I think about it. That's how I think I'd feel. I like to know exactly what I'm going to be doing each day, hence why attending the music club for the first few times was so scary to me, as I'd had no idea what it would entail. It seems to have been a good instinct, as Haruka's tense expression lifts a little. That's a good idea. Well, let me think about it. Is that okay? Yeah, of course. There's no rush. At my laid-back reply, she starts to relax, nodding and looking a bit more like her usual self. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you tomorrow then. Not wanting to hold her up, or make her feel uncertain about things any longer, I let her go. Yeah, see you tomorrow. We go our separate ways, and part of me is almost wishing that I hadn't completely pushed that idea onto her, feeling guilty for adding to her anxiety. I'd completely understand if she ends up saying no. Here's hoping that she doesn't get too flustered about it. The evening has passed as it usually does. Homework, dinner, sheet music. I'm looking over Schubert's Ave Maria, the newest addition to my collection. It's a little difficult to guess which members of the group will play what parts, but I'm sure it'll become clearer once we start playing it together. My phone startles me slightly when it goes off, and I put down my book to reach across for it. To my surprise, Haruka's name comes up on the screen. I talked to my parents about coming over, and they're okay with it. Is tomorrow after school too soon? Tomorrow? I hadn't expected that at all. I'd have thought she'd want at least a few days to think about it, considering she'd been so worried about it earlier. Feeling a little strange, I tap out a reply. I'll have to check with my parents too, just give me a minute. Placing the phone back onto the desk, I stand up to leave the room, but I'm barely reaching the door before it goes off again. We must have been typing at the same time. Going back to the desk, I read Haruka's message. Sorry it's so sudden. I think I just want to do it soon so I don't have to worry about it too much. I guess that makes sense. One day of nerves is better than a week. No problem, be right back. I make it downstairs without another message interrupting me this time. I don't have to look hard for my parents, who are sitting together on the couch watching TV. When I approach them timidly, both of them look at me as though they're witnessing a rare and splendorous event, like an eclipse or something. I endure their gazes and clear my throat. Something you need, son? God, this is bizarre. I'm not sure if I've ever asked my parents anything like this in my life. Do you think Haruka could come over after school tomorrow? Both of them goggle at each other for a moment as if wondering if they misheard me, and then their faces positively explode with joy. Of course, Kakeru! We finally get to meet her then! I nod, feeling like every drop of blood in my body is now in my head. I can't remember the last time I saw my parents looking this pleased. Wonderful! This is so exciting! She glances at Dad again and they share a smile. I feel pretty awkward, but I guess I'm glad that they're happy about this. There's just one thing I need to get straight. Just so you know, I hope this doesn't go down badly. Haruka's blind. She's a bit nervous, like me. Understatement of the year, but let's go with it. She just needs some space. I stumble over how to elaborate, feeling inadequate and clumsy, but they both seem to understand what I'm saying. Though they look a little surprised for a moment, they nod and recover their composures. Tell her not to worry. We'll make sure the two of you are comfortable. Yes, it'll be fine. That went better than I thought it might. My parents are used to dealing with me, but I don't think they've ever known a blind person. I'd hate for Haruka to feel awful after coming here because they aren't sure how to approach her. Yep, she's blind. Did I fail to mention that part, Ian? Did the part with the cane and the braille earlier not give it away? However, it seems as though they're okay with it, so I nod in acknowledgement and thanks. We talk a little longer, mostly about how long Haruka will stay and what we'll need, if anything. And then they let me go so I can update her on the news. OBS is really not cooperating today. Let me see if I can't fix this on the fly. Settings. Advanced. It's not something that I can do on the fly, unfortunately, but hopefully by my next stream it won't be an issue. Heading back up to my room, the weirdest feeling rises in my stomach. I've just never really done this before, and it feels odd to be typing out a message like this to Haruka. Tomorrow is fine. My parents said they won't crowd us too much, and they'll make some food if we want. As the text shoots off into the ether, I find myself sort of grinding to a halt, standing there with my phone in my hand and trying to comprehend my feelings. Before I've managed to snap out of it, I get a reply. Great. I'll go with you, and then my parents will pick me up afterwards if that's okay. Sounds good. And that's it. This is happening. I'm bringing a friend home from school tomorrow. I stand there a minute longer trying to make sense of the thoughts swirling around in my head, and then I realize that it's not just nerves and strangeness that I feel. There's a hint of excitement there too. Okay, thanks for inviting me. I'll look forward to it. I think I will too. I'd better hide these too. Lunging at the pair of underwear sitting on top of some dirty socks, I grab them and cast around for somewhere to put them, settling and stuffing them into a drawer for now. It's Wednesday morning and I'm on high alert. Haruka's coming over today after school. With this in mind, I'm currently in the process of trying to tidy up my room a bit. I don't put much care into what my room looks like usually, but this is a special occasion, so I'd better do something. Spotting a couple of discarded game cases on the floor, I kick them under my bed as a temporary fix. I'll actually put them away once Haruka's gone. As they slide out of sight, I realize how this might look. I'm not expecting Haruka to be coming to my room for any weird reasons. We're just going to study some sheet music. Despite the fact that I'm alone, my cheeks still burn with embarrassment. I swear, I'm not thinking inappropriate things. I kneel down to start untangling some cables hanging out of my games console when something else hits me. I'm an idiot! Haruka won't know how much of a mess my room may or may not be, because she won't see it. Cradling my head in my hand sheepishly, I despair at my own stupidity. Well, I guess it'd still be useful to clean up anyway so that there's nothing she can trip over. Feeling like the biggest dumbass on the planet, I go back to neatening up the cables. I was wondering when he would figure that out. The piece comes to an end, the chord we've created collectively fading out. Kudo-sensei nods, seeming satisfied. That's definitely getting better. A couple of you need to adhere a little more closely to the time signature and tighten up your timing. But other than that, it's sounding good. He takes a moment to consult the clock on the back wall. That'll do it for today. Keep working hard and we'll have it perfect in the end. Everybody breaks into chatter and he shoots me a brief glance before making his way over. How do you feel you're doing, Akane? Not too much for you. I shake my head, not wanting to seem problematic, although to be honest, thanks to Haruka's help, I'm not finding the club experience to be terribly overwhelming anymore. I still struggle to play certain pieces, of course, and I definitely don't feel like a real part of the group. But I have made a bit of progress, so I guess that's something. Good! You might have had a shaky start when you first arrived, but you're getting there steadily. I like that work ethic. He winks at me impishly, and I bow my head, a little flustered. He is a pretty nice guy, although moments like this get me embarrassed. Stay on course with that, you'll be fine. Remember, you can always let me know if you're struggling with anything. I nod in reply, and he grins again before leaving me be, heading off to catch up with the other group members. Glad to be out of his gaze, though still appreciating his encouragement, I pick up my bag and stride across the room to meet Haruka. Hi, Haruka. When she doesn't reply straight away, I whip around to face her after closing the door, wondering what's going on. The look on her face is uncomfortable as she wrings her hands around her flute, almost as if she's trying to squeeze water out of it. Oh, she doesn't play piano blind, she plays the flute. Hey. Are you okay? There's a short pause before she speaks again. Is tonight still happening? Yeah, why wouldn't it be? She nods, her eyes wandering around the room in agitation. Okay, just making sure. Sorry. Her shoulders sag a little in shame despite the visible tension in her body. I'm just nervous. I can't blame her for feeling so anxious. I'd be doing the same thing if I were in her shoes. It's alright. Before I can think of anything comforting to say, she pipes up again. I just hope your parents don't think, well, because I'm blind. They already know. I told them, and they're fine with it. The last thing I want is for Haruka to think my parents will see her as some sort of freak. Seriously, they won't make you feel bad. They can't wait to meet you. She nods hesitantly, seeming to relax slightly. Okay, some people just... Her brow creases, and I imagine she's probably recalling times when people have reacted to her issue in a negative way. I empathize with her sadly, having plenty of memories of it happening to me too. Yeah, okay. She nods again, seeming to be consoling herself, and decides not to finish whatever she was about to say. I begin to feel awful for putting her through this. You really don't have to come if it's too much. No. She's quick to refute my comment. I want to. There's a short silence between us, and though she's blushing profusely, there had been a slight more resolute tone to her voice just then. I guess she does want to go through with it. I'm happy with that, as long as she doesn't feel pressured. Okay. My parents are pretty relaxed, so it'll be okay. She seems to appreciate the reminder somewhat, and then she makes a visible effort to pull herself together. I don't think I'm a very good storyteller, Nian. I'm just reading the story out loud, which I have plenty of... I shouldn't say I got plenty of experience with, but I've learned how to do it pretty well. Shall we practice? Of course, doing something that we usually do might help to calm her down a bit. Internally, I laugh at the role reversal that's occurred. Last week, it was me asking her if we could play so that I could take my mind off meeting with the club members. Sure. How have I not gotten tired? Well, staying hydrated helps. Definitely helps. We'd fumbled through a few pieces, Haruka uncharacteristically distracted, though she'd managed to get into it a little more around halfway through. Now that club activities are over, the two of us are heading down the path towards the main street. Once we reach the point where we usually split off, we turn to each other automatically, a strange feeling hanging between us, with the knowledge that we won't be walking in opposite directions today. Well, my house is this way. I won't walk too fast. Thanks. I've never been that way before, so... if you could let me know if there are any steps or anything coming up, that would be great. This might be the most vulnerable I've seen Haruka. I know that her cane must help her out when she's navigating, but evidently going somewhere new is an awkward and uncertain experience. Yeah, don't worry. I'll do my best to guide her as we walk, although I've never done anything like this before. Alright. She moves to stand alongside me, signaling timidly that she's ready to set off, and I turn and face the direction we need to go in. Awkwardly, we make the journey together. Most of the time, Haruka maintains a short distance from me, though close enough that she can probably sense and hear my footsteps. Luckily, most of the streets are pretty flat and linear in this area, so there's not much I have to warn her about. Once we get onto the home stretch, things become a little trickier, although it's completely my fault. Without thinking, I take one of my regular shortcuts. It involves slipping between two buildings and hopping down the raised platform that they're on to the street below. I'm so used to doing it that my body just goes into autopilot. As soon as my front foot hits the ground, I realize how difficult I've made this for Haruka, turning back to her quickly. There's a big step here just in front of you. Sorry. Okay. She pauses for a moment, using her cane to map out where the platform ends and the length of the drop, and after assessing it, she steps down gingerly. Unfortunately, the gap had still been a little bigger than she thought for, and she wobbles for a moment, unsteady with only one foot on the ground. Oh! Reflexively, her hand shoots out to grab something to steady herself with, and due to our proximity, the thing she happens to take hold of ends up being my arm. Catch her, Kakaru! Come on! Be a man! The sudden contact jolts me, but more out of surprise than anything else. She hadn't put much weight on me, so I don't stumble or anything. It's just... Haruka, having regained her balance, realizes that she's holding on to me, and her face grows as alarmed as mine probably is. The two of us freeze in place, embarrassed over the physical contact. This is the first time either of us has touched the other. Sorry! She withdraws her hand quickly, her cheeks reddening. No, it's okay. I honestly can't remember the last time anybody touched me. Probably whenever I last saw the doctor or the dentist. I'm glad you didn't fall. Yeah. The two of us linger in the awkwardness, reeling slightly, but then I figure it's best to just keep moving things forward. We're nearly there. Haruka nods, still a little perturbed, as we continue stiffly on our way. I curse myself harshly for not thinking ahead when it came to the route Haruka and I would take. No more shortcuts. Now that we've arrived, without any more awkward moments, I open the door for Haruka, allowing her to enter the house first. She patters in slowly, understandably unsure of herself, and I slip my shoes off, grabbing a pair of the white slippers my parents keep by the door for guests. You can wear these in my house. I'll put your shoes somewhere safe. Haruka extends her hands timidly, and I place the slippers into them. All right. I wait for her to remove her shoes and then take them, placing them on top of the shoe rack that stands against the wall beside me. Once she's put on the slippers, she stands there a little helplessly, her confidence visibly wavering. You okay? Something that vaguely resembles guilt flashes across her face for a moment, and she bows her head slightly. Yeah, let's go in. I'm almost in two minds as to whether to let her keep pushing herself like this or not, but she straightens her posture in some sort of determination, so I stay quiet and lead the way into the lounge properly. As we stride in, my dad rises from the couch, having been reading a newspaper. Haruka, this is my dad. I decide to introduce her before Dad says anything as a sort of warning that someone unfamiliar is about to speak to her. Unfortunately, I realize that she probably isn't sure of where he is in the room, but thankfully Dad fixes that by talking before she does. At last we meet, Haruka! At the sound of his voice, Haruka manages to get an idea of where he's standing, turning to face him. Part 5, Trophy Earned. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Likewise. Dad's laid-back nature seems to help in this situation. His eyes briefly sweep over her cane, but then he simply returns his gaze to her face, seeming pretty unperturbed. Evidently having heard the conversation begin, Mom comes in to join us from the kitchen. This is my mom. This is Haruka. Mom looks positively radiant as she takes Haruka in, glowing with joy at the fact that I've brought a friend home from school for the first time in, well, possibly ever. She could barely contain her excitement. It's lovely to meet you, Haruka. We've heard nothing but great things about you since Kakaru joined the music club. Calm down, Mom. We're not trying to make Haruka faint with embarrassment here. Haruka fidgets, her expression displaying a mixture of bashfulness and appreciation. Thanks for inviting me. Mom looks as she's about to offload another bout of praise onto her, and I feel as though it's going to be too much for Haruka to deal with right now. Thankfully, Dad seems to sense the exact same thing and diverts the conversation. Why don't you take a seat, Haruka? You made some snacks for us, didn't you? He directs the last question at Mom, who nods enthusiastically, having taken the bait. Yes, make yourself at home and I'll bring some food in. We made a few little treats for you. She disappears back into the kitchen. Haruka seems a little relieved that some of the attention has been lifted from her. Shall we sit in the dining room? There's more space in there. She nods silently, and I walk ahead of her, allowing her to use the sounds of my movement to guide her. Once we reach the table, Haruka takes the seat closest to her, placing her bags down on the floor next to it. Wanting her to feel as comfortable as possible, I make a slightly louder than necessary show of pulling the chair next to her and sitting on it. Sorry if my mom's a bit excited, we don't really have people over. I can't help but point it out, hoping that she's not finding it too intense. She turns her head toward me, seeming glad to know it's me who's sitting close by her. It's okay. I don't bring friends home either. She'll calm down soon. She nods, turning her attention back to her surroundings and running her hand along the edge of the table in front of her. It must be so disorienting to not have a clue what's around you like this, and I begin to really feel for her. However, before I can say anything more, Mom and Dad come in, both carrying small plates of food. Why was that so hard to say? Here we go! Dad takes a seat and Mom passes empty plates around for us to use. When she gets to Haruka, she freezes in place, the plate hovering in her outstretched hand. I start scrambling to say something, but then she pulls herself together and comes up with a solution herself. Haruka, shall I get you some snacks? There are a few things to choose from. Just tell me whatever you'd like. It seems as though Haruka had gotten the gist of what was happening from the sounds of us taking the plates and had been fretting over how this was going to work out for her. As Mom offers this easy and thoughtful alternative to her struggling to take the food herself, a weight seems to rise from her shoulders, and for the first time since we entered the house, she smiles a little. Yes, please. Thank you. Dad and I help ourselves while Mom reels off the short list of everything that's on the table. I watch as Haruka asks politely for the things she'd like, and Mom puts several generous servings of each onto the plate for her. It's strangely nice to see, especially because Haruka seems to have calmed down somewhat thanks to how accommodating Mom is being. Once Mom's finished playing the gracious host, we all tuck into our food, and I steal a quick glance around at everyone. Haruka's not the only one who's out of their comfort zone. I haven't sat at this table with my parents for so long I can barely remember. I've been so focused on how Haruka was feeling that it's only just occurred to me. My stomach bubbles with nerves, but I fight them off as best I can. I can't run off to my room this time. Thankfully, things seem to get a little easier for Haruka as the minutes go by. She manages to fall into conversation with my parents, albeit awkwardly. They ask about the music club, and she fills them in on what it's like. She doesn't mention the fact that she doesn't participate with the group, but I can't blame her for it, so I don't bring it up either. The fact that Haruka and I attend the club at all is probably a miracle. Well, it's nice to finally meet the person Kakeru's been telling us about. Haruka smiles awkwardly, and I feel my face flush. I don't talk about her that much. Both parents giggle at my embarrassment. And to my right, I hear a little sigh of amusement escape Haruka. Mom then straightens up, growing more serious. No, but we are grateful to you, Haruka. We're so glad that Kakeru's found someone to encourage him with his music. I'm starting to feel pretty bad, like I'm being gossiped about right to my face. But then it begins to slide away when Dad pipes up. Good to know you're both having fun. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Where does this take place? My guess is Japan. All the honorifics and chopsticks and eating octopus. It's Japan. Not to mention taking off your shoes to put on house slippers. That's definitely a Japanese thing. Plus all the Japanese names. He shoots me a sideways glance as he says this, seeming genuine in his sentiment, and it makes me feel a little better. I guess my parents just want me to have a good time at school instead of being afraid all the time. Anyway, it's nice to hear classical music coming from his room sometimes instead of video game noises. Mom bursts out laughing and Haruka almost does the same. I sit and fester in my embarrassment slightly, although at least everyone's smiling. We've all finished eating by this point, and I'm starting to feel as though my parents should back off a little. I don't want Haruka to get overwhelmed by the constant attention, and I'm not exactly a fan of it either. Did you want to look over that sheet music, Haruka? She looks towards me, seeming relatively comfortable, although I pick up on a hint of gratitude that I've tried to move things along. Yeah, okay. We better leave you to it then. He stands up, picking up some of his now empty plates, and Mom eyes Haruka with a little disappointment. She obviously wants to keep talking, but to my relief, she nods and joins Dad in clearing the table, apparently remembering Haruka's nervous disposition. Yes, you two do whatever you like. We'll be in the lounge if you need anything. The two of them continue to bundle the plates and glasses in their arms, and Haruka and I delve into our bags. The difference between the two of us becomes blatantly obvious when we put our sheet music collections onto the table. I drop a few relatively thin books onto the wood, whereas Haruka produces her cumbersome folder, bursting with who knows how many pieces. It doesn't go unnoticed. That's a big folder. You must be quite the connoisseur. Haruka laughs nervously, although nods in agreement. Something like that. At last, they leave us alone, heading into the kitchen and beginning to wash and dry the dishes together audibly. Haruka lets out a relieved sigh. Are you okay? It wasn't too much, was it? No, it's all right. I'm starting to get used to it. I was just a bit scared at first. Your parents are nice. I'm glad she feels this way. I've been genuinely terrified that they'd ask her too many questions or just generally weird her out so much that she'd want to leave early. Yeah. We both run out of things to say for a moment, and then Haruka opens her huge folder. What do you want to look at then? Ah, right. Having started to cool down from the initial intensity of it all, we settle down and start studying some pieces together. I admit which ones I'm not so good at, and she goes through techniques and performance directions with me. At first it's a little strange, especially when my parents finish with the dishes and go sit down in the lounge. They don't put the TV on or anything like that in case they disturb us, but the doorway that separates the dining room from the lounge is angled so that I keep getting glimpses of them out of the corner of my eye. Mom in particular seems interested, eyeing us inquisitively from time to time, and I have to do my best to ignore her. At least Haruka isn't affected by it. In fact, I'm really glad that this whole thing hasn't been too overwhelming for her. She's pretty brave in a way. I couldn't manage to meet those boys in the city. But she's come to my home and socialized with my parents, despite how nervous she'd been. I just hope she feels as though it's worth it in some way. Kakaru? Ah, crap. Sorry, can you repeat that? I had zoned out while thinking about everything and missed whatever she just explained. Thankfully, she doesn't seem annoyed. This part needs to have an ebb and flow to the dynamics. So here, where it says fortissimo, she touches the braille on her copy of the music, and I note which bar she's talking about with my own. That bit needs to be louder towards the end of the bar. That way, it makes more of an impact when you get to the next part and the volume drops again. It's like a wave, rushing in and then retreating, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that makes sense. She has a pretty eloquent way of putting things that I could never replicate. I suppose it's down to her passion of the subject. I'll try that next time I practice. She nods, seeming focused, but then looks at me with a question in her eyes. What time is it? I fumble to consult my phone. Almost 7:30? My dad will be here to pick me up soon. I should probably get ready. Okay. We end our study session, putting our things away, and Haruka takes a moment to readorn herself with her belongings, slipping her bag over her shoulder and locating her flute case and cane. We step back into the lounge area, and both of my parents' heads turn to face us in unison, as though they're robots programmed to act as one. Are you heading out, Haruka? Yes, my dad will be here any moment. The two of them stand up and come closer, beaming at both of us. Well, it was lovely to meet you, and I hope we get the chance to talk again. Yeah, nice to see you, Haruka. Haruka bows her head slightly, embarrassed but smiling nonetheless. Thanks, you too. I don't want this awkward goodbye to drag out longer than it needs to, so I head towards the door. Here are your shoes, Haruka. She turns in my direction and then bids my parents goodbye before joining me at the rack. Her demeanor relaxes again once she's putting her shoes on. Do you want to wait outside? Yeah, I'm sure Dad won't be long. I open the door and we step outside into the cool air. The sun has started on its way down below the horizon, making the street a slightly more comfortable place to be. Thanks for inviting me, Kakaru. I know I've probably been really quiet. Her gaze dips towards her feet momentarily. But I've enjoyed it. You have? Yeah. I like your parents, and She pauses a moment as she collects her thoughts. Well, neither of us really do stuff like this, do we? That's an understatement. No, you're right. She nods bashfully. So it's been nice to try it. I wasn't sure if I could do it, so... Her cheeks flush and her smile stays in place. Thanks. No problem. I guess it must feel pretty liberating for her to realize that she actually can visit a friend's house without getting too wound up. Before we'd met, she probably didn't have anyone whose house she could go to. I guess I gave her an opportunity, and it turned out well for her. That's something that makes me glad, too. I felt as though this friendship has been pretty one-sided so far, so being able to do something for her in return makes me feel a little less guilty. The two of us stand and wait a short while longer, content to simply enjoy the quiet ambience of the street, and then the unmistakable rumble of an engine begins to permeate through the air. As it gets louder, I see a car turn onto our street, slowly coming to a stop on the opposite side of the road. Haruka follows the sound with her eyes. What type of car is that? I recite the license plate to her and she nods with a smile. That's my dad. All right, I guess I'll see you tomorrow then. Thanks for coming over. Yeah, see you tomorrow. Thanks, Kakaru. She heads off towards the car and I watch as her dad gets out briefly to say hi to her, guiding her to the passenger side door. I don't get a proper look at him thanks to the distance, but he makes sure that Haruka's comfortable before getting in and driving off. Releasing a breath that I didn't realize I'd been holding, I feel my body relax. The unusual situation is over. I head back inside, discarding my shoes and heading into the lounge. My plan is to grab my bag and head straight to my room, but of course Mom is waiting for me in the middle of the room, evidently having more to say. Do you think that went okay? We didn't make her feel too nervous, did we? I guess she might be questioning how they treated Haruka, especially in the beginning, when Mom herself was a little giddy at her being there. No, she's alright. She was a bit scared to start with, but it got better. Her expression brightens a little. Oh, good. I must say, she's a lovely girl. Though he's across the room, Dad chips in from the couch. Yeah, and smart too. It was impressive the way she was using that braille. Very talented. Mom nods in agreement, and I feel a little pang of shame on my part. Of course Haruka seems talented. Anyone would. Stood next to me. However, Mom continues, throwing this train of thought off somewhat. I bet you're just as talented too when you put your mind to it. I'm not sure what to say in response, but her comment does send my pessimistic thought away. She regards me softly before turning back towards the couch. Anyway, you get on with your homework. I'll bring you some more food later. She crosses the room and sits at Dad's side, and I nod, taking it as my cue to disappear. I guess she realized I've pretty much had enough attention for today. After collecting my bag from the dining room, I head upstairs, closing the door behind me. Well, that was a thing. If you'd have told me a few weeks ago that I was going to bring a friend to my house and have my parents entertain us, I'd have said you were out of your mind. I stand there for a moment, leaning against the door and replaying the events of the last couple of hours in my head, taking it all in. My parents seemed so happy. My friendship with Haruka must really mean something to them. I guess it's proof that I'm not completely hopeless after all. I am capable of mixing with people. Well, people who can't see me. That may not be much of an accomplishment, but I'll overlook that for now. Tired of thinking about it, but still feeling relatively pleased with how everything went, I pull my attention back to the room properly, surveying the oddly tidy scene. Oh, for God's sake, after all that cleaning and worrying this morning. Haruka never even came in here! And I think that is a good spot to save for today. Perfect. Go back to the main menu, and that was day 5 of Venus Improbable Dream. I really hope that my next stream is all fixed. I'm going to be working on my settings in OBS, see if I can fix it. So, I'll be back on Tuesday to play something else, but I will not be back next Sunday to continue my playthrough of this game because I am going to be in Florida watching the next launch attempt of Artemis 1. I don't know if that means that I'll be gone just next Sunday. There's a chance I'll be gone the Sunday after that as well. We'll have to see how that goes. Regardless, I am loving this game a lot. This was a nice, wholesome episode today. Thank you, Nian, for being here. Shout out to the lurkers. Wow, yeah, I need to fix OBS. It's dropping like so many frames. I'll try and get my internet fixed before the next stream. Until then, on behalf of East Asia Soft, I have been Skull. Have yourselves a great day and a great week, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.